You all need to get on your Orochi game. I've seen how you're doing in here, and some of you don't know what you're doing. So let's go ahead and get into this and make sure you know how to build the proper Orochi team. That's right, in this particular episode, we're actually going to be talking about why it's so important to have a high-quality speed team that teams well with other people. We're going to talk about 4 different things here. First off, why is it so important that you have this speed team that works with other people? What is it that makes a good speed team? Then we're also going to talk about, once you have the right units and you have the right team, what does the turn order need to be, and what do the souls that you want to put on them look like? And finally, we're going to talk about team etiquette, because some of you out here are doing some things that are just stupid. Maybe that's a little mean, but that's what it is. All right, so first off, let's talk about why it's important. I think there's a lot of people out there saying, well, I mean, it's easier just to go ahead and make my own team and just run it by myself. I don't want to have to deal with this. Well, that's fine if that's really what you want to do, but if we're talking about what is the most effective way to play this game, it's not that, right? And you're like, well, I don't care about effective, I'm just trying to have fun. Okay, that's fair. If that's what you want to do is you have fun, then turn this off, go away, that's fine. But for the rest of you who want to do well in PvP, who want to be able to keep up with the metas, who want to continue playing at the highest levels, then you need to try to make a team that's going to be able to team well so that you can actually be able to keep up. And so that part of that includes taking a look at things like the AP discount that you get here. So if you take a look, I'm going to create a team, right? And I'm going to say invite only because I don't want anyone to join me, right? It's going to cost me 4 AP to run with a team. It's going to cost me 6 AP to run by myself. That's 2/3 the cost, right? 2/3 is insane. I mean, when you're thinking about it now, you're like 4 versus 6, you're talking about a difference of 2, but we're at the long run, right? If we're saying, let's look at this, let's blow this out, right? To what is like 3, 4, 5 days worth of AP, we're talking about 400 AP spent versus 600. That's, you're able to do twice the number of runs that you would have done otherwise. And the math on that gets weird, and maybe it's not exactly twice. Whatever. I don't care about exact numbers on it, but you would have done significantly more. So the point here of what I'm trying to say is that if you're gonna go through and you want to use the most effective use of your AP, you should be teaming up with people. But there's more than just that. On top of that, you allow for a conservation of runes or of souls. So when you're running through and you're doing these runs, you only have so many good souls to work with, right? And normally speaking, that means you have to go slowly and rune everything out on everyone and on like 5 units and try to make sure they're all really good and they all have to be up to a certain level before you can move to the next level of Orochi. But with this, you only have to rune or soul about 3 effective units, 3 to 4 maybe, right? And even then, your 4th one doesn't have to be as great, and we'll get into that. But the point is, you need less souls in order to be able to do more. And so that's extremely important for being able to get farther faster, because the name of the game here is getting to the G6 souls. Everything else before that is just trash once you get to G6. So you really need to be pushing for those G6 souls. On top of that, a speed team means that you have more time for other activities in this game. And there are a lot of activities. You have the boss hunts, you have netherworld gates, which, same time frame. You have duels at 2 different times in a day. You have co-op duels. You have the new battle royale modes that have come out. So you have a lot of stuff that you should be doing. On top of that, you have to explore in order to be able to get more experience for doing farming. There's tons. You have demon parades. So I'm not going to go through the entire list of everything. That's most of it, but the point is, there's a lot of stuff to do in this game, and you can't spend your entire time farming. So that means you need to try to make it as efficient in cost as possible, and you need to make it as time effective as possible. Both of those are accomplished by being part of a team. So finally, that means that if you're going to be in a team, having a speed team allows you to do it even easier. And the most important thing that shows me that NetEase was thinking that was the same case, that speed teams for Orochi should be more important, is everything is easy to kill. Nothing has that much HP in this area, right? If you have the right units and you have good souls, you can blow through everything in any stage, right? In 2 turns, 2 rotations, if that. Some cases 1 rotation. So the important thing is to try to be in a team, make sure it's a speed team, get in, get your souls, get out. That is the main point. Okay, so what makes a good speed team? That's where we're going to actually start taking a look at what some of the stuff I have here is. Some of the stuff I have here is? Okay, words are apparently hard right now. But anyways, so let's actually go over to what I have for Shikigami here. So first off, you generally need about 3 things, right? You need 2 damage dealer, or 3 damage dealers, sorry. And those are going to be 2 AoEs and 2 AoEs and 1 single target. Actually, I'd like to go to collection even more. Shikigami. So if you have the SSRs, here's the ones to look for. They are absolutely phenomenal, top tier units, right? So for your AoEs, almost everyone prefers... Where is he? Where is he? It's one of the only ones I don't have. Utengu. So Utengu is probably one of the most preferred SSR AoE units that you could possibly get in this game. Now, if you don't have them, don't sweat it. It's not a huge deal. The next one is also really good, and that is... Where's he at? Abume. Abume is also phenomenal. There's a couple things that actually make them specifically better than almost anyone else, but it's not a big deal if you don't have them. A lot of people are arguing right now that it is a big deal. They might have some merit in that, but if you have one of these 2, you're going to be pretty good. But trying to get those 2 is kind of your biggest deal, and from there you kind of start playing around with options that you have. The most common as far as a single target that people really like, and again, I know I'm talking about SSRs here, and this is a common complaint people are having, but Yorohime is by far and away one of the best single targets for Orochi. And the reason for that is, generally speaking, or your single target is going to go in last to clean up, and the single target for Yodo is that when she kills one dude, if there's a second dude up, she's going to then move over and do that person. So generally speaking, I've seen some people try to run a damage hybrid Aoinden. The other one that's common to see is Ibaraki Doji, and he mixes the line, right? Some people really like him for some people really like him as far as is like his single target goes, because he does a large amount of single target and then he blows them up with Infernal Hand. Well, Infernal Hand is a single target, and then he blows them up by killing one thing, doing a bunch of AoE with Rage Outlet here. So there's that. 1 second here. Okay, so we have the 3 types of damage dealers that you're going to be looking to have inside of a team that is in Orochi, right? So you have your 2 AoEs and a single target damage dealer. You, generally speaking, are going to be responsible for 1 damage dealer. You generally should build up a second damage dealer, preferably a single target and an AoE DPS, and have those 2 kind of ready to go, because you might be required to use 2 DPS. But after that, the next thing you should be looking for, and I don't care about summoning, is an attack bar booster. Attack bar boosters are going to be the people who make the team allowed to be speed units. If it wasn't for these attack bar boosters, the bosses on each stage would go before a lot of your damage dealers, and in some cases just one-shot them, or at least do enough damage that you're never going to be able to finish Orochi himself. So your two attack bar boosters that you're going to try to be looking for is going to be, and the name is incorrect here, I replaced my own names, but his actual name is Kamaichi. So Kamaichi is the one you're going to want to be looking for. And actually, let me just go over to collection again so we can actually take a look from there. Okay, so you know what you have to use for damage in there. You need 2 AoE units and a single target unit. You're generally gonna look for having 1 damage dealer done, possibly 2, especially if you're gonna be, not shooting above your weight class. You're going right for where you should be. You should have 2 ready to go. One's generally going to be higher than the other one as far as how far you've evolved them. But if you can get them around G5 and then eventually G6, one of them, you're going to be looking good for the later stages of Orochi. But in the meantime, once you have your 1 or 2 damage dealers done, the next thing you're going to need is an attack bar booster. Attack bar boosters are really important for this part of the fight. The reason they're so important is in the most stages, the bosses or even some of the other side Shikigami would actually be faster than your damage dealers and inflict quite a bit of damage in your group. Now that's fine if you have some sort of mitigating factor like a Shuzu or some sort of healer, but that slows down the run, and that's not the name of the game here. The name of the game with Orochi is speed. So what you want is an attack bar booster to move all of them up so that they attack before anything else that goes. So in this case, you have 2 options. Now this is going to be the more rare option that you're going to use later, and some people argue about whether or not it's actually better. I can see those arguments, but his name is Kamaichi. And Kamaichi is important because of this upgrade right here. The level 3 increase on Brotherly Bond also raises the move bar of every one of your Shikigami by 30%. And this is going to be what allows them to go before any of the other Shikigami on the Orochi side of things. Once you have him, he's gone, everyone else is going to take their turn, and hopefully you're going to wipe out at least 2 of the 3 units. Maybe the 3rd unit gets an attack off, and after the next round you beat them and move on to the next stage. But the problem with him is that he requires 3 orbs to do this, and in some people's math it doesn't quite work out right, and they end up having an issue if it goes on too late. If all of your math, the other problem that he has, by the way, is United. Some people say don't evolve him. It's your choice whether or not you do. But you should know that if you evolve him, there's always a chance that he'll spaz out on United, take a bunch of extra turns, and then use Brotherly Bond again. If that happens, it's going to really mess up your orb count, and there's going to be a good chance you wipe. I don't know. It's a fairly rare circumstance. I think it's still enough to risk it. I'm not worried about wiping one every 15 times or whatever the insane rate it would have to be for him to do that. But the much more likely unit that you are going to be running for quite a while is Yamasagi. Yamasagi is the most common unit for attack bar boosting in the game, especially early on, because A, she's a rare, which means she's easier to skill up, and B, her bunny dance, her bunny dance only costs 2 orbs instead of 3. So this makes it a little more flexible how you actually use your team. So the main thing for her is that you want to try to make sure she gets her attack bar boost fully skilled up, because even at max it's only 20%, which is a problem because there's going to be times when you wish you had that extra 10%, but that's in PvP, not in Orochi. In Orochi, it's perfectly fine. So getting her on fully skilled and bunny dance ready to go is important. Her one drawback though is ring toss. The AI, the way it works, is going to occasionally use ring toss instead of bunny dance. It's just not going to use it every time. Bunny dance does have the most priority, so on the first turn, every single time, without failure, she's going to use bunny dance. But if you don't do the right thing, on the next turn, she's going to use ring toss. It is not useful in Orochi and will waste 3 orbs that you valuably need. And we're going to talk about how you can deal with that particular issue after our next look at what your next Shikigami needs to be. Okay, your final Shikigami, and this is incredibly important that you do this right, because it doesn't work without her, is Zashiki. Now you may see other people use Aoinden, and Aoinden is this chick right here. Now, Aoinden is a great PvP unit, absolutely one of the best. She occasionally allows for some people to use their turns without having to spend any orbs, and on top of that, she can steal orbs away from the enemy. Phenomenal unit. That said, she doesn't work as an orb provider. That is not her job. She can act as a backup and occasionally allow people to take free turns, and that's phenomenal, but it is not reliable. And reliable is the name of the game as well as speed. So, in that case, there is exactly one unit that can do this job as well as possible, and that is a Zashiki. Now, you have options when it comes to Yama, and when it comes to Kamaichi. You have options when it comes to your DPS, though some would argue that you absolutely have to have an Abume or an Utengu, and I understand those arguments. But when it comes to orb providers, as it stands at this point in the game, you absolutely, positively must have a Zashiki if you want to do a good general speed team that's going to work with everyone else out there. And if you do not know why, then we should talk about the skills that she has. The first one that she has is trade-off, and this is where the general bread and butter of it comes as your later levels go in, and that's that she sacrifices part of her current life in order to add a number of orbs to the bars. Now, generally speaking, you want this to be at least one skill into it, so you're getting a full 3 orbs every time she sacrifices her life. Getting the second skill would be helpful because it reduces the amount of HP she sacrifices, but it is not necessary. The second skill that we're going to take a look at is Serendipity, and this is where the real battery kickoff of her ability starts. Serendipity allows you to actually start off the battle with additional orbs. So if you have max skill, she's automatically, in addition to the 3 you already have, going to give an additional 3. This is incredibly important because you need to be allowed to have your as many of your Shikigami use their most powerful abilities on the first turn as possible. So once we've actually finished that up, let's go ahead and take a look at the Onmyojis. So Onmyojis, a lot of people have different ones they want to use, and I can appreciate anyone really wanting to use Kagura, Hiromasa, or Yaobukuni. I understand that they're all very cool and all very interesting, and they could possibly all work in Orochi. However, what we're talking about here is what is the most commonly useful team that will work with everyone. And for that, there is only one that's going to work with the strategy I'm talking about today, and that's Saimai. Saimai specifically has 2 abilities that allow him to work correctly. The first one is Star, and the reason why Star is so important is because it has a higher damage dealt bonus that it puts out. And the damage dealt bonus that it puts out as a buff means that Yamasagi and Kamaichi will use their attack bar boost the second turn that their turns come around, because it's going to cause the AI to trip out and not see its own buff. This won't work for a third turn, unfortunately, but it does work to make sure that they do attack bar boost on back-to-back turns, which is incredibly important for making sure that your team is able to get in its second round of attacks before any of the other Shikigami on the other side can get their turns in. So, that is the first skill that's very important. The second skill that is also very important is Protect. And the reason why Protect is so important is that it will absorb all of a single shot. Now, it will override the shield and break it, but that said, if it's a 10,000 damage hit and it overrides it by 7,000 damage, all of that damage still goes away. So that means at the very end, when your guys are starting to die and Orochi is starting to peg people off one at a time, you're actually able to... he throws up Protect and he blocks a significant amount of damage that would have came through. And this also applies to earlier stages. So this is the best overall option that you should go with. But in addition to that, we're also going to talk about what level he should be at in the next section. So before we move to talking about souls and turn order, I want to also mention that it's a really good idea to make sure that you're using 3 people. Now, this isn't necessary if you know the person and you both have good units and you know what you want to use. Using 2 people is perfectly fine. But when you use 3 people, you reduce the burden significantly, and everyone can use their best units. If you're using 3 people, that means one person is committing an Onmyoji and a single Shikigami, and the other 2 are putting out 2 Shikigamis, as opposed to the alternative where the host puts out a single Onmyoji and 2 Shikigami, and the other person has to ante up 3 Shikigami, which can be difficult if you've not done a lot of work to spread your souls out to other teams. So if you want to get people's best work, you should always consider using 3 total people in the team whenever possible. This shouldn't be too hard, especially if you're trying to operate at higher stages. If you're putting a host out there for a stage 7 or 8 at this point, very few people are running those right now, and will most likely you will get a lot of signups immediately. So let's talk about what are the best turn orders and souls that you could be using on the units that would make up a good speed team. Well, the first unit that you're going to be using is going to be your speed leader, or your attack bar booster. That's going to be the person who's going to make sure that everyone goes, and because of that, they have to be the fastest. Now, the nice part is that both of the attack bar boosters in this game are also very good in the current PvP meta, which means that you're already going to have them being very fast, likely the fastest person on your team. But you do need to try to be using a specific set of souls. And the reason for that is that it matters what speed or what they are contributing as far as orbs as they use the orbs to boost. So in this particular case, one of the best ones that you could use is Fortune Cat. Fortune Cat is very important because the 4-set bonus grants a 50% chance of gaining 2 orbs at the start of your turn, which means that if any of the combat is extended, you're going to be able to continue to keep moving. This won't help on the first turn, but on the second turn, it could mean the difference between a Shikigami being able to make the attacks it needs to make, or just using its default skill and you all wiping. So again, very important. Using Fortune Cat is the best way to go for them. Other than that, get a speed skill or speed soul on slot 2 and try to get some good speed around on everything else. They should be your fastest unit and anyone's fastest unit when they come in there. In order to be safe, you generally want to shoot for about 150 to 160 range. The second target that you want to go is going to be your Onmyoji, Saimai. And Saimai needs to go first because he needs to get Star out there in order to increase the damage that your AoE units are going to do. In order to make that happen, you need to make sure you stay on your game as far as keeping his evolves or his totem increases power-ups going. So as you can see, I've made sure my totem got to max skills immediately. And because of that, he has a fairly decent speed at 128 speed. So for now, that's going to be the best I can get him at. That should be sufficient to make sure that your units are not going before him, assuming they're not using speed runes on slot 2 themselves. The next unit that you really should be having go next in an ideal world would be your AoE DPS. Now your AoE DPS is going to be anything from Kuramujo to Ubume like we have here, or Tengu like we were talking about. Some people with really good runes on an Ibaraki Doji might go with that, although I would caution that those do have to be really good runes to function as an AoE unit. It doesn't matter, so long as you can find a good solid AoE DPS, that's what you want to go with. Your best ones being Ubume or Utengu. Those are just the hands down best AoE, just general AoE units in the game. If you can get those, everything's going to be a-okay. You can not have to struggle too much. If you don't, you might have to put some work in, unfortunately. Beyond that, however, they should be your ideal next person to go. And if they do, they're going to have the strength boost. They're going to do a bunch of damage to all the units. Then we'll talk about what your next one should be, which is your orb provider. Now, this is a little tricky because a lot of people argue about the order of this, and it really depends. Personally, for me, I have her actually going second because I put her a speed soul on her first slot. And you might be going like, well, didn't you say not to do that? And you're right, I shouldn't have. But in a perfect world, we kind of get to decide where everyone else's speed is, and that's kind of hard to do. If I was doing this a little bit smarter, I would have her speed about 127 or 126 in order to make sure that she actually comes in right after Saimai and then right before everyone else. Or actually, if we're really talking about it, what it should be is is your attack bar booster, Saimai, your AoE DPS, and then Zashiki, because what'll happen then is you'll clear out enough orbs that she'll definitely use her sacrifice ability in order to fill up the orbs. If she's going immediately after the attack bar booster, and your attack bar booster is Yamasagi, she is only going to do a basic attack and not actually use her sacrifice ability, because you'll be at 2, you'll only have 2 orbs missing. She's looking for the full 3. But that said, the runes, the souls that you want to go with on her is Azure Bazin. Now, this is really, really important. I need everyone to pay attention. This is exceptionally important, because if you don't do this, you are going to find that your team runs out of orbs faster than they should. If you put Azure Bazin on her, she will have 3 orbs that she puts out at the start of each battle, right? This includes the start of each round, and that means every single turn, every single battle that you start off, every round you start off, is going to have the full 9 orbs. This is the key to making sure you start off with maximum orbs, and I cannot stress enough that you absolutely should have Azure Bazin on her in order to make your team most effective. Now, there's other parts in the game where people would argue that she doesn't need Azure Bazin, she should use something else. And in those cases, I suggest having a second Zashiki. She's an important enough unit that you should consider building a second one of her. I haven't exactly thought about third. It's not something I care or worry about right now. But for Orochi, you should have her on Azure Bazin. Okay? Simple enough. Finally, after your Zashiki is gone, you can have your second AoE DPS go. Now, I actually have heard someone point out that it's a good idea to have both your AoE DPS go before her. That means that if they wipe out the entire team, you don't have to waste the animation time for Zashiki taking her turn, which means maximal speed. But that takes a lot of speed tuning to make sure you get it right. And generally speaking, that's something you would want to do with people that you regularly run with, not random people that you just happen to be picking up. And in those cases, I would suggest that you should be shooting for either her going right after Saimai or before Saimai, doesn't really matter. If possible, going after an AoE DPS, so maybe bringing her speed down just low enough that some people will clear the barrier, 120-ish being about that range. And then finally, if you really want to maximize, you could drop her down enough so that both the AoE DPS go. Again, I wouldn't recommend this only because it's really hard to tell what a lot of people will use for their DPS, and it's hard to plan something like that out. Okay, so once you're done with all of your AoE DPS, your Zashiki, your Saimai, you have 1 unit to go. And this should be the unit that cleans up whatever's left. Generally speaking, the only thing that should be left is whatever had the most HP. And if we're working in that perfect world, then any single target DPS will work. However, if someone has a Yodohime, you should always let that person be the one who should actually go. And the reason why you would want to use something like a Yodohime is for her skill, Savage Combo. Savage Combo is really important because what it'll do is once she kills that single target, if there happens to be 2 targets, she's going to move on and kill that one as well. But essentially, she's doing a lot of single target damage, which makes her really important for being the single target damage dealer. Those happen to be the most important, but like I said, if you just find yourself with 3 AoEs or another really strong single target DPS, then that's fine as well. But either way, you should try to be shooting for 3 damage dealers. That happens to be the perfect situation that I just called out, but you could try doing something else. One of the things you'll notice on my damage dealers, though, is that I use Seductress. It happens to be that this is one of the most powerful sets in the games for multi-damage dealers, but in addition to this, the Shikigami that have multiple attacks and use this are doing a lot of damage to boss monsters, since it's doing additional damage based on 10% of the target's max HP. So, bosses that have way more health than any Shikigami's ever going to have are dealt a lot of damage by this. Now, it's limited, granted, by the amount of attack you actually have on that person. That's something that you're going to have to work on individually. But Seductress is a very good unit, soul set to be using for multi-hit Shikigamis, and I suggest taking a look at that. So I have a sample run here that we're doing for you. This is a Souls 8 run. And what you're going to see is that your Yamasagi goes first, Zashiki goes second, Unfortunately, this person made their particular unit really fast, and it went before my Saimai. It is a little bit out of order, but as you can see, with enough damage, it gets through just fine. This is not something that you need a healer for at all. So he's used that. Yodohime is going to go, and she cleans up, so it doesn't matter. So again, Yamasagi's going to go. She's going to use her just basic attack because Yamasagi only used up 2 orbs. Your AoE attacker is going to go. Yodohime happens to look like she is going to clean up. So it doesn't matter about using him at all, unfortunately. I was using a friend's rep. Realistically, he should not have used... His is probably a little bit slow, but that's not a big deal. What we're really here to talk about is the screen that comes next. If you're hosting the match, this window comes up. And this window is very important because a lot of people don't know what this does. If you click OK, it will send invites out to everyone. However, if you click this checkbox and click OK, it'll make no difference on your end, but a world of difference on the other person's end. And I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like right now. Okay, so we've just finished up a run here, and as we're getting out, I'm hoping that this person will continue the invites. If he does, you're going to see either 2 or 3 options. Okay, great. So it's the third option here that we're really looking for. If you click that checkbox, that person is going to have this option. When they click on it, they're going to join just as normal. However, when they finish, you're going to see a much different result at the end of that match. So we're going to go ahead and jump over to that right now. Okay, so we've just finished up that match that I was just starting off. And so as we finish up here, I'm going to leave. And you're going to notice that doing absolutely nothing... Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. There we go. I had to do nothing. Now the person left, but, you know, whatever. The point of that was that because that person had checked that box, it made it so that I, as one of the people who was in that group, automatically got pulled into the next match. And that's something called auto-accept and auto-invite. So those 2 functions happen in tandem, and they allow you to actually be able to just automatically join in for the next one, and allows you to speed up the process and not have to wait. This is really helpful for the people who are joining onto a host who are trying to do other things at that time. I suggest if you're the host, be kind, check the box, let people actually be able to join faster. The next thing is part of our little etiquette trip here, is don't be the person who brings in fodder into Orochi. Look, I get it. If you're joining a lower level Orochi and you happen to be much stronger than a lot of the people in there, you may think, I'll throw in one of my fodder because I want to level them. My damage is enough to do that. Which normally, it probably would be, assuming you're much, much higher level. But as you can see, the number of spaces that you need to fill for those roles are already fairly tight as it is. But worse, let's say you get to the very end with Orochi, he stuns everyone, then kills your fodder, which gives him another turn, he then kills someone else, which gives him another turn, he kills someone else. All of a sudden, your inability to try to be kinder to the people that you're running with is costing them AP. So just don't do it. Don't be the person who puts fodder in there. There's places for that. Orochi is not it. Next, let's talk about auto versus manual. A lot of people feel that it feels better to manually make your decisions, and I understand that. That makes a lot of sense. But if you want to manually make your decisions, go play on your own. Unfortunately, a lot of these people don't have time for you to wait for what is the best decision in this exact time. A lot of people are trying to get through as fast as they can, and I don't blame them. When you're in there, make sure that you're actually doing what you should be doing and allowing people to be able to get through as fast as they can. Checking the box in the bottom left-hand corner and selecting ×2 is the difference. So don't manual, auto. Every time, and you'll be much better off for it. Everyone else will be much better off for it. Like I said, if you like to manual, I understand, but there's a place for that. And it is not when you're trying to run Orochi. Orochi is about speed. Just auto. So I only have 2 more things to talk about, one of which is that you should be sharing the DPS duty. If you are the person hosting, put a DPS out there. Let the other people take care of putting one DPS out and one of the easy to build units that can stay at G4, like Yamasagi, Kamaichi, or Zashiki. Let them do that. By doing it yourself, you force someone else to have to put out a second DPS, which they may or may not be able to do. Now, if they insist upon putting out the second DPS, by all means, go ahead and put out Yamasagi or Zashiki. You absolutely should have those two units. Or at the very least, sorry, not Yamasagi, but Yamasagi or Kamaichi and a Zashiki. Those two units, your attack bar booster and your Zashiki, should absolutely be out there in some way, shape, or form. But share the DPS duty. And finally, if you are the leader, do not keep the lineup locked if everyone is on auto and there's a problem with the setup. So if you don't have a Yamasagi and you don't have a Zashiki, but you're in the auto accept, auto invite rotation that we had talked about earlier, and you keep the lineup box checked, which, by the way, I'll show you real quick, just in case you had a question about that. So this box right here, if you have that locked, you are going to auto start as soon as you go in. And they don't have a choice. If they've auto accepted in, they're just going to ready up immediately, whether or not they have lineup checked or not. You as the leader need to be able to see that someone doesn't have a Zashiki or an attack bar booster out there. You should uncheck, and then you should start the battle. And then I personally suggest saying something that you need the orb provider, or that you need a Zashiki, an orb provider or an attack bar booster, and they have little stickers in the bottom left hand corner that allows you to say that. So that's about it, guys. I'm hoping at this point now every one of you can be productive members of this community. Get out there, make great speed teams for Orochi, and be able to clear it with any person you join with. If you follow everything I said in this guide, you're going to be able to do very well in farming quickly and moving on with the rest of this game to do the things you want to do. Alright guys, get out there, farm your Orochi, and have fun. Thank you very much for watching this guide. Please leave a like or dislike if you felt so on below. And if you feel like leaving a comment, I'm always happy to hear from you. You guys have a great day, and thank you very much. Bye.